Right, I'm the Executive Director of Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. And today is November 18th. It's Thursday, 2021. And we're here at Riviera Beach Preparatory Achievement Academy. And students are Senegar, Cameron, Natalia, Mary Beth, and Michael. And also Mr. Williams is here, the teacher. So, sir, what is your name?
My name is Sherman Raing.
Okay. All right, Mr. Raing. And when is your birthday?
28 May 47.
Okay. What city do you live in?
I live in West Palm Beach.
Okay. And what branch of the service were you in?
I was in the Air Force.
Okay. What year were you from the Air Force from?
I enlisted in 25 February 1969 and got out in 25 May of 1973.
Okay, so you served, what, 4 years?
4 years and 3 months.
Okay, all right. What were you doing before you went in the service?
I was working for a company called RCA, working in the computer division.
Okay, RCA where? Located where? Up in
Palm Beach Gardens.
Palm Beach Gardens, right. Okay, good morning. And we also have Mark, another one of our students. Okay, what were you doing? How long did you work for RCA?
I worked for RCA about a year and a half. Prior to that, I was in the electronics school in Miami.
What school was that?
It was called RETS, R-E-T-S. It was mainly specialized in electronics and architecture.
Okay, so you decided to go in. Why did you pick the Air Force to go into?
Because at that time, it was probably the safest branch to be in. This was during the Vietnam era, and I did not want to be in the Army, did not want to be in the Navy, did not want to be in the Marines. Okay. And during this period of time, the draft was very, very heavy. And actually, I received my draft notice, but prior to that, I went to see an Air Force recruiter. He said, if you get your notice, please come, and we'll get you in the Air Force as soon as possible.
Okay, all right. So where did you go to basic training?
San Antonio, Texas.
Lackland Air Force Base?
Lackland Air Force Base.
What was that like?
Well, actually, it was not bad. They tell you that you will always remember your DI, your drill instructor, but I did not. I do not remember mine. It was a time whenever it was different for me because you have all these guys living together. But I was kind of fortunate. When I went in, I was a little bit older, about 2 or 3 years older than the majority of the guys who were with me. So,
right.
So in a way, I was there, kind of like a moral compass in a way.
Okay. Because you were older.
Right.
Right. I get that. How large was your flight? How many?
Are you going to ask me that?
How many inmates? I remember mine.
I do not remember that. There's a lot of stuff you want to
But
forget.
it was about 50 though, right?
Right. It wasn't very large.
Okay. So how long was basic training?
I think 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yes.
At the end of the 6 weeks, did you decide to go home on break, or did you go to your tech school immediately
I went
after?
to tech school immediately.
Where?
I went to Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi.
Right, for what?
I was there for about six months, a little bit over 6 months. I was in the electronics there also. Okay. And that's mainly what I did, just study electronics.
Okay, all right, six months, so that's 24 weeks.
And Keesler was very interesting. I said it was in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Right.
At that time, I tell people I was in a hostile territory, not during hostile pay, because it was not the best place for a black person and being in Biloxi, Mississippi at that time.
And what year was that again?
That was about 1969, 70.
So you're talking about there was a lot of racial tension?
Yes, there was a lot of racial tension. But also, not only racial tension, but by being in the military, the people in Biloxi did not like the military guys at all, because a lot of times the military guys had a little money, they would go to town, and the local guys would become jealous. So we were told not to go off base by ourselves. We had to make sure we had at least 2 or 3 of us with us when we went off base.
Right. Okay, so were there, anybody get hurt? Any incidences? I don't care whether it was on duty or off duty that you know of. Were there any casualties?
No, not at that time.
Okay.
But the interesting time was Hurricane Camille came through.
Right.
While I was there. And that delayed my time, extended my time at Biloxi.
Oh, really?
About 2 weeks. because we had to help restore the area a little bit. We had to help clean up the area.
Right. So you wound up spending more time than you thought you were going to be there.
Yes, yes. But it was a good time. It was a good time. I really felt good about tech school because I was doing what I wanted to do. Basically, I was learning about electronics.
Right.
And I was fortunate. All my scores were very, very high. One of the highlights of my career at that point in time was I was interviewed by what we call White House Communication. White House Communication that's a group of guys, a group of ladies and guys they're advanced people. They go set up communication for the president whenever they go on a trip. Like if the president was going to Russia, before the president would go, the communication team would go and set up communication back to the command center, back to the White House. So I was interviewed for White House Communication, and because of my test scores, and they kept on asking me questions about, because they wanted me to become part of it.
Right.
Because of being part of White House Communication, I would not be wearing a uniform. I would have been living in Washington, D.C., and it would have been more like a civilian job. But the thing about it is, I wanted to get out of service and come back to my job at RIC because I really enjoyed doing what I was doing. As I told you earlier, my hobby was working. I enjoyed the work I was doing at RIC, working on computers. I thought that was very interesting. But they kept on asking me a question. They asked me did I have any, had I committed any crimes and things of that nature? And I thought. I said, well, when I was younger, my brothers and I, we actually took this guy's car and went for a joyride. See, my key would fit his key, so we just took the car and went for a joyride and brought it back. Technically, that's stealing. So, and I said, I knew they were going to give me a lie detector test. So I said, I had to tell the truth. I did not want to say, no, I had not done anything. But I did not know if that was the reason why I was not selected for White House Communication, or the fact that I had a very strong desire to get out of the Air Force, because they wanted someone who would commit long term, because they were going to invest a lot of time in me and my training and making sure that I could handle the job. So they were looking for someone who would be part of the Air Force for a long time. But at that point in time, my thought was 4 years and I'm going.
Right. Okay. All right.
So Keesler Air Force Base was good to me, and from that aspect.
Okay, so after that 24 weeks, did you take a break or did you go to your next duty station?
I took a break. You actually have that 2-week break, and then you go back and finish up your term. And then I went to Eglin Air Force Base.
In Florida?
In Florida.
What part of Florida is that?
That's by Pensacola.
Right, on the West Coast.
Right.
Okay.
The Panhandle. And then I was
How long was the tour?
About a year and a half, because again I was selected for another special project because of my scores, my training. Me and 5 other guys were selected to go to Dallas, Texas for 6 weeks for training on brand new equipment the Air Force was going to move into. It was computerized equipment. So I was one of I represented us, okay?
African Americans?
Right, I represented us, okay, so. It was very interesting. We learned this computerized equipment, which was made by Collins Radio, and we were there for 6 weeks, living together, going to school every day. That's all we did, just going over the equipment, learning the equipment. And then we went back to our base, we were put on what we call a freeze list.
On what?
A freeze list, meaning that we cannot be shipped out of the continental United States until 1973, so January 73, and that made me happy. Because like I said earlier, Vietnam was very hot.
Right.
And in my career field, I was in what we call ground radio maintenance. And that was my, what we call FSC. So in my career field, it was a very deadly career field because they would take people who had any type of radio training, whether it was a maintenance or radio operator, they would put them in what we call an O2. This was in Vietnam. And then they would fly them over the enemy, and they would fly at a very low altitude trying to spot the enemy, but also they were targets. So the survival rate was not that great. So I wanted to stay in the States as long as I could, and that freeze list kept me in the States.
Okay.
But when I was at that, after I finished college radio, we went back and we started working on this equipment. And then we worked for a long, long time, and then all 5 of us were sent to, all 6 of us were sent to different bases. And I was sent to Luke Air Force Base in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
And,
For?
but while I was back at Eglin, I was also, when I was at Luke, I was part of what we call Cat 5 testing, category testing.
Right.
On the equipment, making sure it operated properly. And so we had to go to different presentations. I had to represent the Air Force, I had to represent that piece of equipment. And one of my biggest thrills was I went to a meeting. I think I was a I had 3 stripes at that point in time.
So you're a buck sergeant?
Buck sergeant at that point in time. But everyone else in the room had on. They were officers.
Okay.
Colonels and generals. And
you were the only enlisted person?
I was the only enlisted person, but again, I was the only one representing us too.
Right. African American.
Right. This was a very long room. It was maybe I'd say maybe 50 to 60 people in there.
Wow.
Asking questions about the equipment, how did it perform? But I was there to represent the Air Force, telling them, say, hey, this is what I can do. Okay. So I felt very good about it. But it goes back to my training in tech school and also in high school. Because I kind of enjoyed math a little bit. I enjoyed working with stuff a little bit. So.
Okay. So you didn't spend, you were there at Eglin for a year and a half?
About a year and a half.
Okay, so any casualties, anybody get hurt?
No.
How was the food so far?
Food was outstanding. Food was good. That was one of the things the Air Force always treated us super when it came to feeding us. Right? Yeah.
That was another thing I wanted to ask you about was, so your dorm arrangements, and when you started in basic training, it was 50 people in the room, right, approximately?
Right, a whole bunch of, yeah.
So when you got to tech school, though,
right.
How many roommates did you have?
I had 2.
2. So there's 3 of you in a room.
Right.
How large was the room? Was it a good size or too small? Or?
No, it was a good sized room. We had accommodation was pretty good.
Right.
The only thing we lived in the barracks and we had to make sure we took care of the room. I'm sorry, let's back up. There was two guys in the room because me and my roommate, and we had to take care of our room and the common areas. So.
Got you. Right. You had to do your own GI.
Right.
Right.
But there were times when we had to go drill. We had to drill also every once in a while for a parade and stuff like that.
Okay. How did that go? Everything go okay?
Fine.
All right. While you were there for 24 weeks, did you get to Louisiana? Did you travel anywhere? Did you go on R&R?
I went to New Orleans one time because again that was not the best territory for because I had to catch a bus. I didn't have good transportation at that time. So,
right.
And also I did go to Memphis also at that time. Also.
Okay.
So,
all right.
So you did a little exploring, but you had to be safe. You had to make sure that you were in a safe surrounding.
Back in the 70s, the early 70s.
The early 70s. It was not, it was not very friendly.
Okay, so did you have any incidences while in the military at that time, being stationed here with military personnel?
No.
As far as negativity, as far as race relations?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Actually, to be very truthful, like going back to my situation in Dallas, the 5 of us, we had a guy from Massachusetts, we had a young man from New York, a Jewish young man, and we had 2 guys from Georgia, but we all got along fine. We got along fine.
Okay.
So,
what was your next duty station?
like I said, went to Luke Air Force Base. Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, okay.
So I spent my entire time in the States. Okay?
Gotcha.
Good.
What'd you do at Luke?
Luke, again, worked on that system that I went to school on. I introduced it to our squadron there, our flight.
Right.
So that was my job to make sure I took care of it. And I trained other folks on how to use it. And I had to do all called periodic testing on it. I had to communicate to the other guys in different parts of the state. So, okay.
What was Arizona like?
Hot, very hot. But even
what's hot? What is that? 80 degrees, 100 degrees?
Well,
you're out in the desert, right?
Well, actually, what happened? The older equipment was not operating in the summertime because it got too hot. But see, the band I worked in, the communication band I worked in, it was about It was about as long as this classroom, basically.
Okay.
But it was air conditioned also. We had air conditioning, so therefore the equipment would work, you know. But it sometime in that area of the country, in the summertime, especially in the military, they did not do anything during the heat of the day.
Right, they basically wouldn't let you go outside almost, right?
Right.
Because of the health factor,
Right.
that you might have a sunstroke or,
But I met some good people out there, some nice people, and some people, you know, things of that nature.
okay, while you were out there?
Right.
Okay. Did you travel outside of Arizona over that time period?
Actually, we went to the Grand Canyon. That was outstanding. We spent the weekend up in camping.
Right.
We went down to Mexico a couple of times. Went to San Diego. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. But that time I was married, so we were, you know, my wife and I explored different areas. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also California. Went to California.
Where did you go in California?
L.A.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you get to Las Vegas?
Not directly. Then I went to Las Vegas, but just passing through.
Right.
Because I was also assigned to what we call TAC, which is the closest thing the Air Force has to the Army. And we were going on a maneuver to what we call to Beatty, Nevada, which is on the border of Death Valley.
Uh-huh.
And so we spent the night at Nellis Air Force Base, which is there at Las Vegas. And so that was the only time I went to Las Vegas. You know.
Okay.
And actually, when I was in Beatty, Nevada, that was the only time, I say that was the low point in my military career. I felt like I was sick, and I felt like I wanted to desert because I had a flu or whatever. It was just miserable. That was the only time because we were out living in tents.
Right.
Like I said, but we had to, our job was to set up communication.
Right.
My job means that first thing we do when we get to another location, if they deploy us, we had to set up communication back to the command center. Then the next group will set up what we call radio relay equipment and things of that nature. It was a level that we had to perform. So, but that, but like I said, I came down with a very, very bad cold, and that was that was the only low point in my military career.
Okay.
I felt like I couldn't find any comfort. So I just felt like I wanted to call it quits.
This is a really bad experience.
Yeah.
But you didn't?
No.
Right. No. How long did that physical thing?
About 3 days.
Ooh, 3 days, okay.
But like I said, when I finished up with an honorable discharge, you know.
That was it?
Yeah. I finished up
Did you use your GI Bill while you were in the service? For education or anything?
Yes. That was one of the things I wanted to go into service because
For your education?
For education, because I chose tech school. So I was born and raised on a farm in North Carolina, and it was not what I wanted to do. And my parents could not afford to send me to college, so I chose to go to a tech school so I could kind of work my way through.
Right.
But then I knew I wanted to go to college, and so therefore the best way to go at that time was with the GI Bill. So I was able to get, when I got out, I went to FAU. And I tried to take classes while I was in the Air Force, but it seemed like every time I would take a class, something would interrupt. So I said, well, when I get out, I'll go ahead and finish up my college education. So I did graduate from FAU with a bachelor's.
That's afterwards?
Right. And then later on I got my master's.
Okay. And we're going to go back to that? But just a couple more while you're on active duty. Medals, citations?
Oh, just the only thing was just a good, nothing outstanding. No, nothing.
Okay.
Because like I said, I was in the States in a secure area. I did not, the only hostile, they did not give you a medal for enduring the situation in Biloxi, Mississippi, but you know. So
when you were getting ready to separate, what kind of plans did you have?
My plans was to come back to West Palm Beach. Because we thought about staying in Phoenix, my wife and I, but then we decided to come back because all the families up on the East Coast.
Right. Right. Okay. So when you came back home, what did you do when you came back?
When I came back home, I worked in actually a TV and radio shop because RSA had closed down by that time.
Okay. What year was that?
I do not. I cannot recall when they closed down.
When you came out of the service?
Yeah, well, when I came out in the service, it was 73.
So they were
Maybe
closed then, or?
Oh, yes, they were closed. They closed about midway of my service.
I got you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so what did you do?
I worked, like I said, I worked in a TV shop for a while.
Okay.
TV repair, still the electronics, and worked in that. And then later on, started working for another electronic company, which was Nortel. We made telephones and telecommunication equipment, and again, still in the electronics.
How long did you keep that job?
Oh, actually, I stayed in that building for the rest of my employment career because the name changed from Northern Telecom to CMAC, you know. So.
Okay. The entire time you were in the military, did you have any problems staying in touch with your family?
Oh, no.
Okay, there was no issues with that.
No, but we didn't have cell phones then either, did we?
Right, no cell phones,
right,
but
right.
did you write letters or did you call home?
Write letters and call home.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Stay in touch with my grandparents also.
Have you mentioned every place that you traveled while you were in the military?
I think I have.
Leave anything out?
No, I don't think I have.
Got it all?
No,
Okay.
Right. Like I said, I had a pretty, in a way, a bland, but like I said, to me, the highlights was the fact that I was interviewed for White House Communication. That was, I'll probably put that at the top because being able to be interviewed for White House Communication means that someone took a look at you and said, hey, this guy has something to offer, you know. And they looked at my scores, test scores, because like I said, I was at the top of my class. And this was, again, I was representing us, but in the electronics, we have a tendency to fall, there's only one or two of us in the electronic group, basically.
Right.
Okay, so.
At that time?
Yeah.
Okay. No,
hopefully that has changed.
Okay. Do you all, my students, have any questions you want to ask this gentleman about being in the military? And there's be another opportunity if you think about it, because I'm going to ask, how did the military affect your life? Well, let me ask you first.
I think overall, I think it was a positive.
Okay.
Because, you know, one of the things I think it helped me with structure. Today, when I actually fold my clothes, I still fold them the way I used to fold them when I was in the Air Force. And when I get up out of the bed, if I fix the bed, I fix it the way I was taught because they give you structure also. Like coming here this morning, one of the things that was very important to me was like being on time, because it's a commitment, you know. And that's one of the things that I think the military put into me, commitment also.
The discipline.
Discipline.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How did the military leave you feeling about, what is your opinion of war, conflict, conventional war?
That is a hard question because sometimes we think war is a necessary thing, but also we look at the stupidity of war also. When I say the stupidity of it, just like World War I was fought over a stretch of land about 1.5 miles wide, you know, and that means lives were lost because of that, you know. And just like the Vietnam War, we were there, but the question is, did we accomplish our mission? Just like the situation in Afghanistan, yes, we were there. It was a necessary evil, but did we accomplish our mission?
Right.
And that puts that will put a bad taste in your mouth at times, you know.
Especially when there's a great deal of loss of life.
Right.
Yeah.
But then the thing about, you asked the question, you know, am I my brother's keeper? You know, should I help protect someone else? That's, you know, it's hard to make a decision sometimes.
Right.
You know. It's just like you see someone fighting or mistreating someone else. Should you intervene? That was a situation. Just like the World War II was probably one of the. I think we could see a very strong reason because people were being annihilated.
Okay, so was that? You feel like World War II was justified? The conflict.
All means yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about one? I mean, it got started over something ridiculous.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I'd have to, I'm not sure about one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
But like I said, it was started with something ridiculous, and the lives were lost.
right.
But sometimes we just need to step back and see if we can compromise, see if we can settle things peacefully. And I think that's the purpose of the UN and having good diplomats.
United Nations?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, is there anything else that you feel like you may have left out that you'd like to share with us?
No, I don't think so. No, I do not.
We good? Anybody got any questions? Everybody
But
good?
of course, if you ask me, would I do it again? I probably, if the situation was the same, yes.
Why?
Because, like I said, it goes back to, I think I benefited from it overall. It was a big plus.
Okay, so the military was a positive experience for you?
Right.
Okay.
Because it helped me achieve some of my goals, especially the education aspect,
Oh, by the way,
And my
what'd you get
house-
your bachelor's and your master's in?
It's ironic. My bachelor's is in finance,
Okay,
but I've never worked a day in finance. I've always worked in engineering or something of that sort. And I have an MBA, so, because when I chose to go to a FAU, they did not offer a management degree.
uh-huh,
So they offered either finance, accounting, marketing, and I forget the other one at that time. But now they offer management, and so I chose finance.
Okay.
So.
and your master's, what'd you get
Well, that's
in? Same thing?
yeah, Masters of Business Administration, so therefore it covered all the disciplines.
Gotcha, and,
Because the intent was to try to prepare myself to move up in the company where I was working.
right.
Okay.
And where'd you get both of those degrees at? What university?
FAU, the undergrad, and Nova was the master's MBA.
Okay.
But also, like I said, the GI Bill helped me there, and also it helped me get my house also with the GI. So that's.
So you did use it?
Yes.
As much as you could, yeah, okay. And we good?
Yes.
I'd like to thank you for a wonderful interview, and I'd also like to thank you for your service.
Okay, you're welcome. And questions? What's your purpose?
So, how was the food in the reserve anyway?
The food was outstanding. A lot of times we'd have steak and egg, not steak and eggs, we'd have steak and lobster or whatever. They fed us very.
Where did you do your reserve?
Homestead Air Force Base.
Okay.
Homestead, yeah.
From what year to what year?
Oh, that I cannot remember. I know it was in '73, and probably '73 to '75.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And how did that go? You did the 2 years?
I did 2 years, and then I decided to get out because I said I was fortunate enough not to go across the water or get into a conflict. But that was during the time of the Ayatollah started acting out. So I said, hey, well, let me give up my.
What year was that? In the 80s?
About 75, 76.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, thank you again.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye.